Hello and
Mm-hmm.
welcome everyone. I'm Amy Mateus, the Program Director for the Sun Valley Institute for Resilience. We publish the annual Wood River Valley Locally Grown Guide featuring farmers and ranchers, food artisans, restaurant and retail stores in the Wood River Valley, those that support and sell locally grown and made products. And last year we started a webinar series called Meet Your Farmers to connect people to their farmers and ranchers and food entrepreneurs in the region. This year we took a little shift on things and decided let's focus on some of our retail stores that support local and feature some of the farmers and ranchers that sell there. So today we are focused on Atkinsons vendors. So while we unfortunately don't have Atkinsons on the call with us today, they had something come up. We're going to highlight two awesome farms that sell products there. So we'll meet them shortly. And I just want to give you a brief introduction to Hannah Harris. She's on the call today. Her name's SVI Zoom. She's our program coordinator. She'll be managing all the tech stuff. So if you have any issues or need support, you're welcome to chat her directly. You can also put anything into the chat with questions or things that come up during the presentation, but we will leave a good chunk of time at the end to ask questions, have conversations with our farmers that are on the call today. So if you can go to the next slide for me, please. Awesome, thank you. So today we will briefly talk about why eating local is important. Then we'll get to know our farmers. Unfortunately, Desert Mountain Grass-Fed Beef won't be able to join us this morning. They had some stuff come up. I will give a brief overview of their operation and speak a little bit about what they're doing, but then we'll hear from Brett at Hillside Grain and Sarah at Squash Blossom. Then I'll just share a little bit of information about Atkinsons, although I assume most of us who live here in the Wood River Valley know Atkinsons well. And then, like I said, we'll go into our question and conversation section. Go ahead to the next slide for me. Thank you. So eating local, I think a lot of us choose to eat local for a variety of reasons, and there's some very obvious benefits to both the producers who sell into the local marketplace and to us consumers who like to support local. So I'll just briefly touch on them, and I'll invite anyone to add the reasons they support local into the chat, or for our farmers to add anything of why they like to sell into the local community. So for producers, it allows them to keep more of their food dollar. So when we sell into the larger scale commodity markets, farmers may keep 10 cents to every dollar of that final product sold. And when we sell locally, they might be able to keep 88 to 95 cents to every dollar. So it helps to increase profitability and drive revenue. It also allows us to recirculate some of those dollars into our local economy. It also means they're less reliant on the global markets, which are kind of volatile and might not be reliable sources of income for them. So that's another great reason why some of our farmers and ranchers sell into the local markets. We also like to see them build relationships with customers. It's nice to know who's eating your food and who's supporting you as a small business owner. Local producers can often be more profitable on smaller acres because they can grow a diversity of food or sell their items for a higher price point, or just keep more of that food dollar in. So it allows, people on 1, 2, 5, 10 acres to be successful in their operation, where a lot of those larger commodity farms have to have way more acreage to be able to make a profit and pay themselves and pay their employees fairly. There's also a little bit more control over the supply chain. A lot of our local farmers are delivering directly to their customers, whether that's a retail store, a restaurant, or at the farmer's market. But there's also, distribution options that are on a smaller scale that people can be more connected with the way their product's moving from farm to plate. And we also see diversified crop production. So a lot of our local food producers can grow a variety of different crops. They might integrate livestock and vegetable crops. They might be able to try out heritage or heirloom grains where the commodity markets aren't always as welcoming to some of those diversified, unique crop options. Sarah, Brett, do you have anything to add of why you like to sell locally? You can also share it later if you don't want to be put on the spot just yet.
You did a good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that for now.
All right, right on. Okay, so and then for benefits to us, the consumers, a lot of our local food is fresher, tastier, and more nutritious. We know that when we're buying local from a farmer, sometimes those crops are harvested that morning or milled that morning or a few days before. So instead of sitting on a truck being imported from wherever they grow across the globe, sitting on the grocery store shelf for a couple of days and then in our fridge, our local food is fresher and yummier, and that also means that there's more nutrients preserved in it. Like I mentioned with producers, when we buy local, we keep those dollars circulating within our community, which is an important aspect of resilience. You also can get to know your farmers and ranchers, which can lead to more transparency with production practices. Some of our farmers, they may not opt to get an organic certification for whatever reason, but we can ask them how they grow their products and feel confident that they're using practices that are aligned with our values, whether that's no chemical use, whether that's using compost instead of synthetic nitrogen, whether that's integrating livestock. Those are all things that we can ask our farmers and ranchers when we have that direct relationship with them. And then there's the diversity on your plate. So when our farmers produce more diverse crops, we get to eat more diverse crops. And that means we're healthier and happier people, because diversity on the plate often leads to diversity in the gut microbiome, more nutrients, and a better overall diet. So those are some important reasons. And for those joining us, if you want to add why you like to support local to the chat, we'd love to hear it. And we can go on to the next slide. Awesome, thank you. So today we have Brett from Hillside Grain in Bellevue and Sarah from Squash Blossom in Bellevue. And like I mentioned, unfortunately, Desert Mountain Grass-Fed Beef wasn't able to join, but I will just give you all some information because we were hoping to have them today. So they're a co-op of farmers and ranchers from the Intermountain West. So a lot of their producers are Idaho-based, but they also have some people in Nevada, Oregon, I believe Montana, and potentially Utah as well. It's a great group of people, and they really value high quality, well-raised animals. I will leave it at that because I'll go into more details about them shortly, but then I will introduce Brett, who can share a little bit more about herself.
Sorry guys, I'm not sure about the video. I keep trying to click start video and it doesn't go. I don't know if that's my end or the host end. I didn't want me to be a little black box up here. That's sort of the anonymous black box. So yeah, I'm Brett. I started milling our grain about 2.5 years ago or so. We're grain growers in the Bellevue Triangle and have been, I think this is my family's 50th year growing primarily grain in the Valley. And I thought Amy did a fantastic job highlighting all the reasons why all of this is very important. And a lot of them resonated deeply with me and were my motivation to start milling. We are growing such great grain in this climate, but for decades, it's been going out of state for the brewing industry and then also for feed, but mostly for beer companies. And I was super excited to figure out how to vertically integrate so that the local community could use it. So barley and wheat, the uses are obviously quite limited in its form right off the field. It either needs to be malted for brewing or, wheat berries and barley berries are delicious, but you get a lot more versatility and just like flour is obviously the primary use with wheat. And so with that added step of processing and vertical integration, we're able to mill the grain and provide flour. And what I'm primarily doing is called a high extraction flour, which means I retain a lot of bran and germ in the flour. Most of the flour in the country is sifted to white flour, so it has a really long shelf life. So that's all by design. Commodity flours, like they want really white because they think people like that white in color, and then it also lets it stay on the shelf for God knows how long. So I'm kind of doing something in between white and whole wheat. I'm also doing whole wheat, but I primarily do a high extraction flour. So it has a really high level performance. It performs a little bit more like white flour, but has that bran and germ in it for nutritional value and for flavor. So selling at Atkinsons is sweet because, as Amy mentioned, I can deliver the day I mill. And so it's cool. It's rare in the country where you can go to the grocery store and get flour that was just milled. I mean, there are probably a handful of places in the US where you can do that. So it's really cool. And Atkinsons has made it super easy. We kicked it off initially with the onset of the pandemic and doing it far sooner than I had expected. I do primarily wholesale, so I'm selling bulk to bakeries. And with the with the crazy supply chain that we were starting to see kind of a shortage of flour in the grocery stores, and I was able to get small bags and get it to Atkinsons like within a 2-day notice, and they've been stocking their shelves and going through a lot ever since then. So, and that also speaks to Amy's earlier point about the supply chain and how it's far more resilient to focus on local and regional rather than a centralized food system. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm not sure if there are other aspects, or we'll kind of get to other parts of it as we go, Amy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brett. And we'll have some time in the next slides to dive into even more details, and you can tell us about your products and maybe about your bread that's been being baked down in the Bellevue Triangle too. But for now, we will jump over to Sarah Berman, who's here from Squash Blossom Farm, to introduce herself, and you can introduce Ed too if you want, and tell us a little bit about your business.
Hi, thanks, Amy. So I'm Sarah. My husband, Ed, is an otter, and I have Squash Blossom Farm in Muldoon Canyon in Bellevue. This will be our 8th growing season that we're going into, which is crazy. And we own our home farm here. We farm about an acre of mixed vegetables, and we also have I just calculated it, and I hadn't done this before, but just about 10,000 square feet of covered growing space. So that allows us to grow vegetables earlier and later in the season. And then we also do a lot of plant starts in those spaces. We also lease 6 acres just out the canyon from our home property. And so that's allowed us to expand vegetable production and also integrate more robust and kind of systemic cover crop rotations to help work on soil fertility and kind of work on sustainability of the productivity of our small space over time. We grow like 50 different varieties of vegetables and some fruits as well. And our sales are roughly divided in thirds between the Ketchum Farmers Market that we sell during the summer season. We also do a CSA program, around 70 to 80 families a year that get a subscription from us for weekly vegetables during the summer season. And then the other third is wholesale. So that's restaurant accounts and grocery stores here in the Wood River Valley. And all of our product is sold either direct to consumer or to the local businesses here in the Valley. And we've been selling to Atkinsons really since really early on, and it's increased a lot over the years, but it's been great to work with them. They're super supportive, and it's just a cool way to have our products available in a different way, or one of many ways for local consumers to have access to. And I can talk about that more later. But we also raise sheep and have honeybees. And so our main production is the vegetables, but we try to operate our farm in kind of a holistic management approach with the different elements.
Awesome. Thanks for that overview, Sarah. And if you're down in Bellevue, you can drive past Squash Blossom Farm and look in awe at the beautiful array of plants they have growing, because they also have a lot of perennial flowers and shrubs and fruit trees. And it's a really beautiful, kind of like an urban farm in a way. I know it's rural because we're a small town, but it's got that feel to it, which is lovely. So thanks for that introduction, Sarah. And we can jump on over to the next slide, and I'll give some more details about Desert Mountain grass-fed beef. So they are grass-fed and grass-finished. They're regenerative beef. They raise Akayushi cattle, which some people call red Wagyu or American Wagyu. And despite being grass-finished, which often gets the connotation of not being really nicely marbled and delicious, their meat is, which is partially part of the genetics that they chose, but also their management practices. Like I mentioned before, they are a cooperative business model. They have over 20 farming and ranching families involved here. And I'm going to give a couple of their nice little tags that they like to use. So their cattle are 100% rancher owned from birth to harvest. So that's a nice way to keep the genetic line pristine, and also ensure that all of those dollars stay within their ranching communities. They've been doing this for a long while now. A lot of their farmers and ranchers were operating before Desert Mountain grass-fed beef came on, but were committed to the practices and the values that they hold. So they joined forces. And I think for me, one of the cool things about their business model is that they work with farming operations because they like to integrate livestock into eating cover crops or grazing fields after grain crops have been produced there, and that helps to build regenerative practices and soil fertility on those farms throughout the region. And so that's a really cool, innovative thing that they do. You can buy their products online and they'll ship them to your house, but we can find them here fresh at the Ketchum and Haley Atkinsons. So when you're in those meat departments, they're not necessarily behind the counter, but they are wrapped and on the shelf there. And they're always something available. It kind of depends on the season or what cuts they have available that week. They get fresh animals in each week to those meat departments. So you might see some steaks, some roast, short ribs, ground beef, stew meat, all sorts of things. And you can always ask the butchers at those Atkinson's locations for specific cuts. I think I will now go to our next slide and let Brett speak a little bit more about her operation. I pulled some fun taglines from Brett's website. So there are no glyphosate, no GMOs, no additives, no bleach, no bromate, or any enrichments of any kind. So I think that's a unique aspect of the flour operation down there at Hillside Grain. And their products are available, I believe, at all 3 Atkinsons, although I think only the Bellevue one has the 25-pound bags, but Brett can correct me if I'm wrong. And then they also do offer nationwide shipping from their website. Go ahead, Brett, and tell us more about it.
All right, thanks, Amy. Yeah, so what I mentioned earlier about this sort of sifting and white flour that's prevalent throughout the country, it's also really common for the large commodity flours to still bleach and bromate their flour, and you won't see that in the grocery store. The little bags tend to be unbleached, but at a larger scale, when you're talking about like the bread and tortillas or pasta in the grocery store, that is often they're using flour that is bleached and bromate. And what bromate is a conditioner that is banned in Canada, Europe, and China. It actually is in those countries. They've done studies to show that it's a carcinogen in rats, and so it's really small. It's pretty scary stuff, and we're still using it in the U.S. I think how and why the U.S. justifies it is because they say that once it's baked, it neutralizes it. But the concern then is if you have anything that's par baked, it's a little underdone, you have this bromate. So another reason why you kind of want to steer clear of cheap flours, and that might also have something to do with some of the digestibility issues that people are having associated with gluten. And then also glyphosate too. There's a practice in the US of spraying glyphosate as a desiccant. So it dries the plant out before harvest, which increases the yield and makes a more uniform harvest in wheat. Glyphosate was never intended for that type of use. It's supposed to be a weed killer, which also is banned in a lot of developed countries, but not in the US. But in this case, they're using it right before harvest. So you end up with residual glyphosate in your actual food product. Again, a possible and probable cause for some digestibility issues that people usually associate with gluten. GMOs, there actually is no genetically modified wheat in the marketplace in the US, actually anywhere. It does exist in lab settings. There is no GMO barley at all. But you know, it's kind of an interesting conundrum that I think people are interested in and concerned about. So I just wanted to clarify that our flour has none of that. The stone mill, and then we have a roller mill. So I don't know, maybe some of you have seen the mill, but it's kind of a unique system. It's actually super unique. There's one other in the country, Karen Springs in Washington, that has a similar setup. It's kind of I think of it as sort of like a new world meets old world system, where we have some really state-of-the-art technology and then some really traditional flour milling techniques as well. So it's a pretty unique hybrid system. And then the availability, yes, Amy's right. The 25-pound bags are available in Bellevue only. Atkinsons has done a pretty awesome job kind of diversifying what they stock where. Bellevue also has it in the bulk bins. Haley and Ketchum just do the 4-pound bags. And then the Haley's, they tend to do some special orders on occasion too. So if somebody does want a 25-pound bag and they don't have room on the shelves for it, they will let me know and I can deliver it to them.
All right, thank you for that, Brett. I'm going to put you on the spot here because I know we talked about it last fall and people might be interested. Are you offering tours at your mill for those who want to come and see the operation?
Yeah, not right now, but yes, I will get to that. I think probably early summer, I'm going to try to do some organized tours. Right before COVID, when we first started operating, I was getting so many calls for tours, and I was so excited to show people the mill. But I found myself like, wait a minute, I'm not a tour guide. I'm not leaving enough time in the day to get my work done and mill. So I started trying to juggle that. And so what I think I'll do at the beginning of the summer is try to schedule a handful of tours that people can sign up for and come down. And then we are we're just new at starting to bake bread. So we'll have some bread to go along with the tours.
Awesome. If you want any support with tours, reach out to me. Be happy to help. And Local Food Alliance can, of course, promote them and get more people to sign up for them. And then will you share a little bit more about what's going on with your bread baking down there?
Yes. So there is a fantastic baker out of Boise, and he has some experience. He worked with the Yellowstone Club for a while and a couple other different bakeries and restaurants in Boise. And I've partnered with him, and he has started baking here in the Bellevue Triangle. It's still really early stages. But we'll get a little bit more organized and have a few more loose ends to figure out, and then we'll start working on wholesale accounts throughout the valley. And it's super exciting for me, and I think he's equally as excited about having this full circle where the grain's grown here, it's milled here, and it's baked here. And again, there are not a lot of people doing this in the country, so this is a really cool thing that is available to our community. So we're super excited about it. And the flavor it's awesome. I talk a lot different settings about this, where it's amazing to me that wheat has so much inherent flavor, and that bran and germ is so delicious. And it's such a shame in the larger scale, commodity scale, to sift all that off. And I think we're so trained, so conditioned to expect that dough products don't have any flavor, and therefore you add it all on top. And in this case, you can taste the wheat flavor, and I think it's delicious.
Amazing. And if people want to taste the flavor of your wheat without baking it themselves, can they get the bread somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, we're just doing direct-to-consumer pop-ups at Cafe Della right now as we speak. This is our third one. We'll keep doing that on Fridays, starting at 10 until it sells out, and it has sold out, I think, the first 2 times, and probably today as well. We'll do that initially until we kind of get more organized and can start doing wholesale accounts. And then I don't know, that we'll probably do it through Atkinsons, I would imagine, and continue at Cafe Della and other restaurants throughout the valley.
Fantastic. Apologies for the leading questions.
No, it's
To
awesome.
make sure everyone knew they could buy a loaf of bread today at Cafe Della if it's not already sold out, which it very well may be, but the next Friday for sure. So Thank you for that, Brett. I think now we'll jump over to Sarah and go to the next slide and hear a little bit more about Squash Blossom Farm. So as Sarah mentioned, they primarily grow vegetable crops, but they also have honey, lambs. I put eggs on there. I think you do have some eggs available. I think they sell pretty fast because they're delicious. And then Sarah makes some awesome value-added products like basil or pesto that she'll have at the farmer's market in the summer. I know that they've had some hides or sheep skins available as well. So that's some fun ways to incorporate some of those other products available into their operation. They also offer Csa Shares. They have a farmer's market credit program, so you can purchase a large amount to put on an account ahead of time. Then you go to the farmer's market and feel really cool because you get to walk away with a bag full of produce and not pay anything because you've already paid for it, which is fun. They also do an annual plant sale, which I think anyone who gardens here should try their plants. They're amazing. I think I had tomatoes coming out of my ears last year because I got all my tomato plants from Sarah, and it was the most successful tomato season I've ever had, and I was harvesting pounds a week, which was awesome. And of course, we're highlighting Atkinsons here, so you can find their microgreens and other fresh produce at the Ketchum and Haley Atkinsons locations. And I'll let Sarah speak more to that and like the seasonality and what you can see on the shelves, as well as anything else you want to add now.
Yeah, so just a little bit more about our farm and growing practices. We, kind of like you mentioned before, Amy, we're not certified organic with the USDA, but we don't use any chemical or synthetic fertilizers. We do everything that we would need to qualify for certification, but just haven't gone through that process, mostly because we feel good about our growing practices and we feel good about our relationship with consumers, and invite anyone that wants to learn more about our practices to come see the farm, or just ask questions about what we're doing here. But yeah, all natural, no chemical and synthetic products used. And then I would like to say that we're like minimal till. We're definitely not no till, but we do a lot here on the farm to try to balance out the tillage events that we do have anytime that we're like disturbing the soil or doing anything to disrupt the soil life. We're trying to, on the other side, balance it with growing cover crops or adding in compost that we're creating here on the farm with our sheep, and balancing it all out in that way. Like I mentioned, we're now growing on a larger area out on our leased land, and that's allowing us to create a much more, like a bigger picture of rotation of crops and cover crops, year-long cover crop rotations that are really getting our soil to the place that we want it to be long-term, to keep being able to produce really fresh and healthy and nutrient-dense vegetables for the community. We also, like Amy mentioned, we do our plant sale. So that is in full swing right now. We grow a lot of vegetable starts for home gardeners here in the Valley. And we really, my mission is to convince everyone in the Wood River Valley that it's possible to have a really successful home garden. And I think people get really discouraged because they buy like these little puny little tomato starts from like Home Depot or Costco, and then they get frosted before they get any fruit, and everyone's so sad. And I've heard of a lot of people that have given up on trying to grow their own home garden vegetables, and I'm here to support them and help them see that it is possible. So we really select our varieties for varieties that are going to thrive here in our short season and high altitude, so that we're setting up the home gardeners for success with these really robust and appropriate varieties of not only tomatoes, but all different types of vegetables that they can take home and grow and enjoy. And then anything that maybe doesn't work that well for them, or they just need to supplement, they can come to us at the farmer's market or go to Atkinsons and get more vegetables that are grown here by us on the farm. And we do that through an online store. Just quick plug, that's open right now. So you can order through our website now and then choose a pickup date that kind of depends on where you're located in the Valley and when it's going to be good timing to plant out your garden. And I'm always happy to answer more questions on that. But anyway, back to our vegetables that we grow and working with Atkinsons. It's been great. I love selling to Atkinsons because it's just another way for customers to have access to our product if it's not in your routine to go to the farmer's market, or you're not, a CSA doesn't work for you for some reason based on your schedule. I love that those people can still go to Atkinsons and on their, quick shop or whatever, going to grab dinner, can still have access and get some of our locally grown vegetables. And they've been really great to work with in the different produce departments, buying from us and understanding our flow and seasonality. And also, just as we are experimenting and figuring things out as a farm, they've been really open to working through that process with us. Our lettuce mix is available there weekly from end of May through about Thanksgiving. We sell the most to Haley Atkinsons. I have a great relationship with Terry, the produce manager there, and they are just super open to taking whatever they can get from us. And then we also sell at Ketchum Atkinsons. You can find our microgreens there most of the year. And then during the summer, we also sell summer squash, zucchini and yellow squash, cucumbers, winter squash sometimes, kale and chard sometimes. It kind of varies, but the main things that you'll see with our label there are the lettuce mix bags and the microgreens. I can go into more on working with Atkinsons, or should I wait?
Go ahead. You can share
Okay.
more with working with Atkinsons.
It's been great working with them. I think both for us and them, just the freshness of the product that they're able to provide to the customers. At first, we weren't sure how to work out like getting them. They were selling out of our stuff really fast, and it ended up just being a problem of storage, that they didn't want to buy larger amounts. And so we were really easily able to problem solve that and create another delivery day. And so I'm able to actually bring it multiple times, the lettuce mix multiple times a week in the summer to keep it stocked. And that actually ends up getting the customer even fresher stuff throughout the week. Not having the burden on Atkinsons to store lots of our stuff. They have pretty limited fridge space actually in the produce departments. So just that the relationship with the buyers, the produce managers, has been great, just to like figure out what works for both of us. And so, like Brett was saying, the freshness of the product coming from our farm multiple times a week to Atkinsons, it's brought there within like 36 hours of harvest, and then usually sold out and restocked as fresh as possible. It's also been really great because the produce managers have such a good relationship with so many of their customers that they've been able to set up some custom orders directly with us too. And so we've been connected to some caterers who will either order directly from us or through Atkinsons because they first found our product at Atkinsons. So just like the small town connections and relationship, I love it because I grew up here buying groceries at Atkinsons. My mom was a personal cook, and so I swear we went there like every day as a kid, got like dragged around Atkinsons. And so now to be able to have our product on those shelves and working with Peter and that younger generation of the Atkinson family who I grew up with is pretty cool. I would also say, like, if you as a consumer want more product, local product in Atkinsons, the best way to do it is just ask for it. Like, walk down the aisle in the produce department and put in a plug for more local products. Or sorry, not just the produce department, any department. And the more they hear that, I think, from the customers, the more they're going to be open to buying locally. Yeah.
Sarah, can I just echo that? Because I think that's a really valuable point, because there are three parties here that make this all work, right? They're the vendors and the buyers, but the consumers are kind of driving that demand. And so it's been said many times before, but I just think it's worth emphasizing that you are, in a way, voting food by your dollars and how you purchase your food. So I think Atkinson sees how much our community wants local, and I think that really encourages them to work with Sarah and me and others. And it's awesome, but it is definitely like a three-way effort. So I think that's awesome, Sarah. I totally echo that.
Yes, I echo that too. It's even on my next slide. So I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think it always hits home better whenever tells people to do that, because it is really important. As consumers, we have a big voice in the marketplace, and whether that's shopping with your dollar or voting with your dollar, but also like speaking up and saying like, hey, I noticed you don't have squash blossom on your shelf today. When's it coming in? Or, oh, I noticed you were out of Hillside Grain flour. When can we see that on the shelf again? Because sometimes those things, like grocery stores, are busy, right? Sometimes things get overlooked, or there's a back stock, but it hasn't been added up front yet because it sold out in a flush earlier. So saying that when you see the grocery store workers is a really important way to make sure that they see how important it is to our community to buy local food and eat local products. So with that, I'll give a little bit more information about Atkinson's Market. They are independently and family owned and operated. They've been here in the Wood River Valley for over 50 years. I think the Ketchum location opened in 1956, hoping I had Peter on so he could give us the exact date. It's a really fun story, and I think they've been really committed to this community ever since. They're very charitable people. They support a lot of the local operations, local businesses, local community groups, local schools. They're always willing to support in any way that they can, and we, like, as shoppers, we like to support them. They offer well over 50 different farms, producers, entrepreneurs, anything from the fresh produce, meat, and grains like we're representing today, but also baked goods, freshly made pastas out of Boise, salsa, all sorts of fun items there. So in every single department in their stores, you can find local products. And like we said, if there's something that you're looking for that you don't see, or let's say you shop at the Bellevue Atkinsons a lot and you'd love to see squash blossom there, tell the produce department that you want to see squash blossom there, and maybe they can make that happen. So with that, I want to give a little shout out to their support. And I think it's really one thing that I love about working with the independent business owners, like a retail store, is there's not a ton of hoops that a farmer or rancher has to jump through to sell. Like if you're selling at Whole Foods or even natural grocers, there's tons of paperwork. It might take 6 months before you even get in. But when you go into Atkinson's, you can bring a bag of fresh greens with you or fresh flour, show it to the buyer, and you're in the next day. And I think that speaks to the opportunity that our independent retailers have to really support the local food economy. I often take photos of my shopping carts at Atkinson's because it's almost always all local products, whether it's honey or milk or eggs or flour or fresh produce or meat. And I just really love seeing that just happen, that it's all local products. And I'm so proud that our 3 local grocery stores all are committed to supporting our farmers and ranchers. So with that, I think we're pretty much ready to get into the Q&A session. I will have Hannah jump forward one more slide, which is our fun survey slide. So we appreciate any feedback that you all can provide about these types of webinars. It helps us make sure we're giving you the content that you're interested in, and being supportive to our farmers and ranchers. So Hannah, at some point, will also drop the link in the chat so you can click right through. We will also send the slides and a link to the recording and the survey and a follow-up to everyone who's registered for this webinar today. And the recording will also go up on YouTube for the public to view, and we'll share that in our newsletter and social media feeds. So if you could now, Hannah, go back. Sorry, I keep doing that to you. I meant to switch those, then I didn't switch the order of them. So I put some of the contact info, so you'll see websites. I'll also invite the farmers to put their email or their websites in the chat if you want people to reach out to you directly, or your link to your social media feeds. Both are pretty active on social media, so it's fun to follow along. And with that, we can go into any questions. I don't see any in the chat currently, but if people have any questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat. You can also come off mute and ask them. And I am happy, I brainstorm a couple questions because I know sometimes our audience can be shy. So I have a few questions if we don't have any that have come in. Or Sarah and Brett, if you have anything else you want to add, you're welcome to jump in and add now, or I can just ask you some fun questions. Oh, it looks like Chris Johnson raised his hand for a question. Yeah, Chris.
Hey, thank you so much for having this. For those of you who don't know me, I am the chair for the Blaine County Soil Conservation District, and we want to help you guys out wherever we can. We've been for a long time focused on, larger producers, but since I've been chair, I'm starting to get this to rotate to look at these, the smaller farms, and this whole idea of bringing it back to the valley. And so I'm in 100% support. And we are here to help you guys. We now have a NRCS person that's coming to the office once a week at least, but we have that now available for us. We're gonna renew that contract here next month, so we're keeping that open for you. But if there's anything that we can do to help you guys, I know my mother-in-law loves the Hillside Grain. We use it where we can, but she'll come from Oregon and she takes like 10 bags back with her. You're doing awesome, Brett. Sarah, you guys are killing it. I love what you're doing. I still need to come up and visit you guys, and I'm like a block away. So it's just annoying. It's just, Brett understands that we get so involved with so many different things. But as the chair, I really want to get out to the smaller farms, help you guys where I can. And Kelsey's on board with that. We just, this last year, I've been working on her, getting her the support she needs, and we got the board on board with that. And so now it's getting out to the farms, and whatever we can do, we're here for you guys. So just let me know.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks for thanks for introducing yourself and for advocating on behalf of our small farms and ranches at the Soil Conservation District. That means a lot.
soil health in general means a lot. I love that there's such a interest and focus on soil these days, because it is obviously where everything starts. And so it's super important to work.
Absolutely. There's even been some new research that has come out to make the connection between like regenerative agriculture, soil health practices, and the nutrient density in food. And I think we'll see more of that come out in the next few years. The soil health matters to our health, and the plant's health, and the animal's health too. So it's all an interconnected system. And the more that we can support that, the healthier and happier I think everyone will be, including our ecosystems and all the critters that rely on those ecosystems. All right. Well, no other questions have come through yet. So I'm going to ask my question. And I'm like, I know we only have 12 minutes left. So I'm going to start with, yeah.
We've got, I think Kelsey might have a question.
Okay, great. Yeah, Kelsey.
Hey guys, so another thing that we are working on is we'd like to do some workshops, and I'm the admin for Blaine Soil Conservation District. And so we're trying to work on maybe coming into some of the greenhouse farms that we have going on. So Squash Blossom, Lookout, that kind of stuff, Hillside. So just keep in mind, if you guys are willing to have, I mean, you can tell us however big you want it, and we can figure it out. But as far as like a tour for your guys' farms, and bring in like our NRCS people and our other districts that are kind of interested into it. We kind of brushed up on it in our fall meeting when we hosted it, and there was a lot of interest in our little farms that they weren't really aware of. And so if you guys are open to that, send me an email and we can definitely get some ideas going and try and figure something out like that.
Very cool, Kelsey. And of course, Local Food Alliance and Valley Institute is happy to partner with you all to host anything if you need extra hands or just getting the word out. So we appreciate that, and really excited to hear about you all stepping in and uplifting those farmers and ranchers even more. Okay, awesome. Thanks for interrupting me, Hannah. I can't always see everyone who has their hand raised. So if you see any others, just go ahead and jump in. But for now, I will ask my favorite question, because I think farmers and ranchers are secretly amazing chefs, and not all of them are, but I think a lot of them are. And I'm always interested to know, like, what's your favorite meal that features local food? It could be your products, it could be other people's products. It could be a single dish or a whole yummy, delicious meal with a lot going on. So if either of you have something, and it's also lunchtime, so it's always fun to get us thinking about food. So if either of you want to jump in and share what's your favorite locally sourced meal or dish.
Yeah, I love it. I love cooking. It's like one of my favorite things to do, especially when we have a bounty of vegetables and different things growing here that I can use. And what pops into my mind is actually something that I'll make on like the one night a year that sometimes we get to go camping. And that is usually some of our lamb chops on either the grill, or if we're camping, just on a fire. And then I usually do like a little Greek salad with cucumbers and tomatoes and some Greek olives and a bunch of herbs chopped up in there. And then some sort of grain, whether it's some really yummy bread with Brett's flour or something like that to go on the side, because my husband will be hungry after dinner if there's not something like that to fill him up. But yeah, just anything with the fresh summer bounty is so fun. Thanks for that question. I love it.
Yeah, sounds delicious. I'm hungry. I'm like, lamb chops. That sounds great. And the Greek salad sounds pretty good too. Brett, what about you?
Yeah, like Sarah, I like cooking, but I really love eating. And what's been on the forefront of my mind, I haven't actually had this yet, but we're working on an event actually for the Hillside Ranch's 50th anniversary. my dad wants to do this barbecue. And so I think that I haven't had them yet, but I think one of Tanner's fortes are brioche buns, and he's making them with our flour. And I'm so excited to do burgers with Desert Mountain or Woodrow Ranch, and then put a little bit of maybe Sarah's pesto in there, lettuce and tomatoes. So I've really been fantasizing, and I don't eat much meat, but when I do, I really want it to be quality. So I love our local beef producers. What I had was, Amy's probably heard me talk about this, what I had been making all winter, I've been making a lot of noodles with our flour, and those have been awesome in the winter. I'm looking forward to more fresh vegetables around the corner.
Awesome. I'm excited for these brioche buns. Hopefully you'll have them at a pop-up shop. I make
Yes.
homemade brioche hamburger buns for my husband. I don't really eat buns that often. He loves them, and they are a labor of love. And if I could outsource that to somebody, I would be very happy to do so.
Oh yes, coming soon. Don't worry.
Awesome.
You'll be
Awesome.
relieved.
Perfect. And I do make pasta every once in a while, and your flour makes some incredible pasta. That's a really fun way to taste the flavor of the flour too, and fresh pasta.
Yeah.
It's a cool way to do it, and it's not as hard as you think it is going to be, is what
Yeah.
I've learned when making
Me
it.
too.
I worked it in my head like it was this huge thing, and it takes some time, but it's not that hard, and really simple, easy ingredients, which is great. Okay, now I'll switch over to kind of a more serious question. What's like one bit of information that you would like all your customers to know?
Well, that's a big question.
It sure is.
There was one thing that Sarah mentioned earlier that I've been thinking about, and there are probably lots of things I want customers to know. And some of them I hit on earlier, kind of about commodity flours, and maybe some of my interpretations of why people are having issues with gluten, and that it's not actually the gluten. So I think that is all super important, and I kind of got over that. But Sarah was talking about foregoing the organic USDA organic certification, and I have done it on half of our operation is organic, and I'm in the process. I've certified the facility too. It is an ordeal. It's expensive. It's a pain in the butt. So I do think this local market is really a great opportunity to kind of skip some of the certifications, because there is that transparency in relationships. It's awesome because of that. It's a little more difficult when you want to go bigger. I'm trying to get into some larger venues in Boise and beyond, and then the certification becomes more necessary. But I think this also kind of invites another question about how organic itself is so thoroughly regulated and defined, whereas so many other terms are not, for better or worse, like sustainable, local, regenerative. And I guess it becomes a huge challenge for the customer or consumer to try to navigate all of that and what it means and what it doesn't mean. And when people, because they're not regulated, when people are abusing those terms, and I see a lot of that happening, and it's just kind of a bummer when you have somebody like Sarah or me or other local producers who actually are really local, and it is transparent, and we are proud of the practices that we have adopted or working on, and then there are others that I feel like kind of hijack those terms sometimes. So I guess it's just a little bit of a challenge to the customer or consumer to kind of navigate that, even at Atkinsons or restaurants or wherever, where the labels are saying, they kind of can claim whatever they want on labels as far as those terms like local, sustainable, and regen ag too is still in that camp. So I don't know. I can't say one's better, one's worse. Like the basically trademarking and certification and definition of organic is kind of onerous, but then again, like the lack of definition is also opens the door for abuse. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
I just echo that, Brett. I think that's awesome, and the fact that I mean, I'm a big proponent of the Gabe Brown model where, just know where your food's coming from. Understand who's making it, what they're doing with it, understand their operations. It doesn't have to be organic. You don't have to pay $2 more a pound for whatever you're making just for that organic label. There's better producers out there that are doing the right things like you guys are. And to sell that and get the word out that, no, it does not have to be organic to be better. And we're starting to see, I do work in the water sector a bit now, and we're seeing PFAS come down on farms, and people are losing their organic ratings because what their water supply is. So, we got to work at it and we got to sell it. But you guys are doing great with, the models that you're using, being able to be transparent and allow people to see where they're getting their food from is so much better than just relying on an organic label.
Absolutely. And we're seeing organic, I don't want to say co-opted, that might be a harsh term, but like we've seen them start to allow hydroponically produced vegetables that have nothing to do with soil. And whether or not you like hydroponic, not the concern. It's that the integrity of the label that started as promoting healthy soil is no longer doing that. So asking about those practices with your farmers and ranchers might be an easier way to make sure you're getting healthy soil being grown that's growing your food. So thanks for bringing that up, Brett. I think really important consideration. Sarah, you want to jump in and share what's one bit of information you'd like your consumer or your customers to know about?
Yeah, I guess this would be something that I would like future potential customers to know, because I think my customers are already on board. But one of the main motivations for me even starting our farm was to show that food can be grown in this valley, or in our kind of micro region here. Growing up here, that's not something that I was aware of. Like, it didn't even occur to me that I could be getting my food locally or regionally. And more, like, you can truly source your whole diet from our region with some intentionality and care. And I think that, just the more people here are aware that that's possible, and if they're asking for it and supporting it, it'll become even more robust. That's what I would like people to know. It's doable. There's food being grown in the Wood River Valley and close by, and that's what they should be asking for.
It's so true. I know our climate it can be hard to grow food in this climate for sure. But our producers here in the valley and in southern Idaho do an incredible job growing a huge diversity of food. I would say like 85% local. I still buy pepper and spices and olive oil and things like that I can't source locally, but all my grains, all my vegetables, most of my fruit, all of my meat, dairy, and egg products are all local. And it's such a rewarding thing to know that my plate reflects my values. And I think that's a big thing about supporting local is we know that, what we're consuming 3 times or however often you eat per day, that you're benefiting your economy, your local community, the land that we live on, the water that we rely on is all supported when we eat local. So,
and I would also add that oftentimes it's not going to be more expensive or just negligently so. I think that's a big misconception around local organic food, that often is not actually true. So I would encourage people to look for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think about Brett and the flour, and if we all remember back when COVID started and flour wasn't available anymore because of those supply chain volatilities, right? And we had a lot of flour, it just wasn't packaged for retail spaces. And Brett was so easily able to meet those needs, but also her flour is so affordable, right? And now what we're seeing with Ukraine and, this horrible war that's going on, and people are thinking that we're going to see, we're seeing prices increase, but we're also going to see some shortages in the grain market. My mom's like, oh, you better stock up on flour. And I was like, well, I mean, I do stock up on flour. I buy bulk flour from Brett, but my flour mill and flower farm is right up the road, and I don't have that concern as much. And I think we're really lucky to know that we have those supply chains kind of locked in and supported. So I think it's awesome that Brett came into this space and started milling flour here, and now she's making bread, and it's even connecting those dots a little bit more. And I think that speaks to the opportunity towards resilience that our local food system has.
Definitely, thank you, Amy. I just have one other burning thought. As we are very intensely regulating or eyeing our water supply, our snowpack and our water supply, and trying to make a planting plan for the upcoming season. Everyone knows that it was a major issue last summer, the summer before, and it's looking like this summer is shaping up to be a pretty bad one as well. I think something that I also want people to realize with grain, water goes off mid-July. If we can do, I'm working on more winter varieties. If we can do more winter varieties, it can go off as early as early July. That's not the case for Kentucky bluegrass. I would rather see, if water is going to be used all the irrigation season, have it go towards row crops and what Sarah's doing and her, the plant cells that she's doing and supporting, trying to get people to grow more vegetables. I think that our water supply is in obviously kind of dire straits at this point. So it just bodes well for grain. And if when irrigation is used, have it go on things that we can eat rather than golf courses, big vast lawns.
All right, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was the last thing I was going to add to is just please be conscientious about water use. It's not a long-term issue in our valley. It's a short-term issue. And like every season, it's something that growers are facing and worrying about and potentially suffering from lack of water. And so, think about how you can play a part in conserving water on a small scale. Think about how you can affect community use and stuff like that, but our water should be used to grow food.
Thank you both for saying that, and not to throw our commodity ag producers under the bus, because I think a lot of them are doing it because that's what the system asks for. But I've heard some people say, we export our water when we export our agricultural goods out of the valley. So can we keep our water here by growing food that feeds our community, growing seeds that are growing crops here for our community, and help that circular economy a little bit more? And it might not ever be 100% of our ag products produced here, but can it be 20%? Can it be 50%? And I think those can be things that we look towards as, starting now, but also going into the future of how do we make sure that we're using our natural resources that are becoming less and less abundant in a way that ensures the health and the long-term viability of our own community. And raising food is one way to use that water well to feed ourselves good, nutritious, real food. I think that's a really lovely spot to end on. I just want to thank both of you, Sarah and Brett, for being here. It was great to have this conversation, to share all your knowledge and insights with us. Thank you, Hannah, for helping monitor the chat and all the admin stuff and sharing the slides. And thank you all to our attendees for being here, for participating, for supporting our local farmers. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday, and I guess technically happy spring, because I think tomorrow is the solstice, which is exciting, or equinox. No, solstice. Oh, equinox. Is it? I'm like, why don't I know which one it is?
I'm pretty sure solstice is in June. Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah, the solstice is the longest and shortest days, and then the equinox is the half and half.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Happy spring.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for being here.